We're back in session. The next topic we're going to take up is old business regarding the R1 zone in the beach block and boardwalk. At this time, Roger, could you go over, we had discussed this prior with at the last public meeting. Said we would do some research on the topic. Our engineer has done that. We're going to go over that now in a report for the board, discuss it, and then we're going to open up to the public, and then we're going to come back and we'll take a vote.
And I think,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something. I have a real estate license in the same office as the people that own the property that we're going to be discussing. And the gentleman had brought it up at the last meeting that if anybody had a conflict of interest, that they should recuse themselves. And I asked our lawyer, and he said to mention it, and that's where I'm at.
if you're going to recuse yourself, you can go sit out there again.
As long as he hasn't any financial, as long as you haven't had financial dealings with her and are not dealing with her, I believe, and our solicitor can say, okay. Anybody wishes to challenge you, or if you feel uncomfortable voting, I would
Look, anyone
step
that feels
down.
uncomfortable voting should absolutely step down if you
Right.
don't think you can be impartial. Not uncomfortable is not the word, impartial.
Right.
If you have some sort of financial interest, then you should also step down.
Right.
I'm not so sure that hanging the same real estate license is a problem if you feel comfortable. The fact that she's your customer.
Well, I'm stating that's where I'm leaving it, and because I want to be clear to whoever said that.
She's a customer at the bike shop?
Yeah.
You have to recuse yourself from every application that comes up to it.
And that's my point. So you don't, if you don't have a direct financial input, nothing that's going to happen with this property is going to affect you financially.
No.
And then if you,
Unless I hit the lottery,
unless, if you can be impartial,
I can.
then I have no problem with you staying.
Right.
And
You're the same spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
okay,
All right.
It's good that you put it on the record, though. So it's clear
Yes,
for
very good
everybody.
you did that. Okay, Roger, could you proceed ahead with the, with your analysis of the boardwalk only
Yes.
in the R1?
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. As you're aware, we did an original consistency report and ordinance change back in May of this year, which recommended going back to 65s and 60s on the boardwalk zone, because that meant the prevailing lots configuration for those blocks and on the other side. However, we looked at it a little bit more closely and had a new consistency report from September 24th. And basically what I'm saying is the ordinance in 2003 created a zone inside a zone. Some would consider that was spot zoning then. So the recommendation of the report would be to separate all the properties along the boardwalk and create an R1B zone and maintain the property sizes the way they are. Maintain the 10,000 square foot minimum size, 80 foot minimum width. And that way it gets you out of the spot zoning that it may have happened in 2003. It creates a zone inside of a zone, but it's its own zone now. Instead of having, well, if you face this way, it's this width. If you face that way, it's this width, and that doesn't make sense. So we did an analysis of all the lots to support this. Whereas for the beachfront blocks, there are 8 blocks on the beachfront in this zone. Blocks 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way through 20. There's 19 blocks, 19 lots total. Of those, there are 3 lots that are 50 feet in width, 1 lot in 100 feet. 2 lots that are 84 feet wide. One's 84.75, but we'll call it 84 to keep it simple. There's 1 lot that's 150 feet wide, 1 lot that's 100 feet. There are 2 lots that are 60 feet. There are 2 lots that are 65 feet. There are 2 lots that are 125 feet. There are 2 lots that are 85 feet. one that's 80, one that's 250, one that's 225. And there's two blocks that I didn't, excuse me. One has 250 square linear feet in width, and the other one was 300. There really is no prevailing lot width on the boardwalk. However, I would recommend to the board, either keep it the way it is, or you pull that out, and you still keep it the way it is, but it's its own zone. That's my analysis. I'm just keeping it simple. This is third grade language, even I can understand. But there's two ways of looking at it. One way is, the end result's the same.
And also, we did a windshield survey or a walking survey and found that other than one block, there are no more than 3 homes in a given block. And some have 2. And that was universal also, which again goes back to supporting the particular findings of that of Roger. So that is the whole thing in a nutshell. And no matter how you boil it, it's still a nutshell, and it's still the same facts. So,
Could, Audrey, repeat that again, what you just said? I just, about the 2 choices that you're saying that we actually have.
The one choice is keep everything the way it is right now. And the problem that I see with that is, go back to 2003 when this ordinance came in to add another layer into this one zone. That could be perceived as spot zoning because you're pulling out certain pieces and putting different parameters on them in the same zone. So the one recommendation that I had, if you don't want to choose it, keep it as is, pull all those lots out, call it zone R1B for boardwalk or bulkhead, whatever you want to call it, and just keep it the same. Either way, it would be the same, but it's zone.
80-foot frontage lots.
It would make more sense as a planning perspective because that R1B is what it is now. It's not part of R1 where, well, this doesn't make sense. R1's a pretty big zone. That's where I'm going.
So you either do nothing or you do what Roger just described.
Well, I think what Roger described and create a new zone cleans it up and eliminates spot zoning. You know, I think that's.
Keep in mind, there's a lengthy process we have to take to create that zone. But from a planning perspective, that's probably the way to go. But it's not my
So
choice.
walk us through the steps.
The governing body has to do a first reading and introduction.
Okay.
Comes back to the board for the language.
Right.
We make a recommendation back to the governing body. They adopt the ordinance. We have to notify everyone within 200 feet of that zone change. That, you know, some people may not like it.
Right. Well, I think you'll find that out.
But either way, I think the recommendation, I know the recommendation that's coming from here is that the size of the lots, the width, the bulk standards stays the same.
Well, we have to vote on that to be sure. You know, but that's yeah.
So what would happen to the lots that are referred to, I think it was what, east and west?
They stay the same.
So those widths on Atlantic Avenue,
They're not affected at all. You're just carving out a sliver along, in Ocean City, it's called the on-boardwalk zone. It's a sliver of all the properties on the boardwalk. Because they had to carve that out because the zoning applications and bulk standards to those are different than what's adjacent to it. Somewhere along the line, you made somebody non-conforming.
It recognizes the uniqueness of all the houses and
Yeah.
properties along the boardwalk, and they are unique and architecturally diverse, and so this basically says, let's just recognize that whole layer, and then not just one small area, but the whole length of the boardwalk in the R1 zone. So it's a good idea.
If there's any questions on how we derived that now from any board members, I'll be very happy to go over that. And you have all the data in front of you on how it was calculated. I mean, what's there? It's just reporting back on the numbers.
Right, so there wouldn't be any negative impact to the overall.
So,
Because
and
it would just be that those defining the boardwalk.
And again, one reason that
Yes.
you would split it is the prevailing lot width on all these blocks is 50 feet by a lot. It's 50 feet, there's 68 properties that are 68 feet.
they are not on the boardwalk.
68 properties that are, no, they're not on the boardwalk.
Right.
But they're in the R1 zone, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying,
You're comparing apples to oranges sometimes.
yeah.
So bear in mind, this only pertains to properties fronting directly on the boardwalk, and there's 19 lots.
I think that it's an issue that should have been addressed a long time ago, and we have the opportunity to clean it up now and go forward. I think we ought to take advantage of that opportunity.
Okay?
Would it just be the 125 feet off the boardwalk, or some of those properties go deeper, like the wind property?
Well, whatever the,
You would follow property lines.
On property line,
Yeah.
or
If it's fronts on the boardwalk,
it would take a property like that, 120 feet, much deeper than that. I mean,
it's,
could we cut it at 125?
and lop a lot off,
And have
and
it-
subdivide.
I did have the proposed,
I would suggest, from zoning
And
standards,
have
you
the
always follow
properties
lot
stay in
lines.
those zones?
You always follow lot lines. When you create a new zone, you follow lot lines. That would be my suggestion.
I would agree.
I drew it the other way for that one lot because it's so deep.
Well, that's the city-owned lot. That's where the tennis courts are.
No, it's the one on the, right up here.
It's Steve Wynn's house.
Okay, right.
Cornwall, okay.
That whole,
Yeah.
But you follow those lot lines, goes all the way back to that, property owned by that property owner, goes all the way back. Yeah, when I looked at that Rogers outline and the statistics that he brought up, of the 19 lots, 12 of them are 80 foot or larger. Just 4 of them are 60 or 65 feet, and only 3 are 50 feet. And as Jay talked, we've all taken our little walking surveys of the boardwalk, and each street end that ends up on the boardwalk, there's 3 houses there for the most part. Almost every block has just 3 lots there. There's one, I think, that has maybe 4. That's where the 50-footers are.
Right.
It's the only one.
But the rest of them are either 2 or 3 houses along that beachfront. It almost screams for a new zone to create that 80 by 125 foot lot requirement. But as Leo mentioned to me, and even the chair mentioned, it's an expensive proposition for the city to go into. We have to notice, as Roger said, everybody within 200 feet. But from a planning perspective, it's probably the right thing to do, because as it sits now, you have, and I'm going to throw a negative shot at Ocean City, Roger. Ocean City has 110 different zones. It's an awful, awful community.
And growing.
It's, try to go in there as a consultant, Art, you've done it. It's very difficult to deal with. They ran out of colors on their zoning map. They have sub-discrete zones. I mean, it's like secret planning.
One side of the street, a porch is a porch, the other side, a porch is not a porch.
Yeah. So what I don't want to get to is that, where we
Nobody
get
does.
to say, all right, we should have a different zone here. But I also look at the R1 zone, and you've got all this disparaging, not disparaging, what's the word I'm looking for?
Disparity.
Disparity in lot sizes, where you've got 50-footers.
It's a drastic change once you get up to the boardwalk.
Exactly. So I see the benefit of that from a land use standpoint. It would not change anything but the name of the zone. It would be 80 by 125 foot lot requirement. We would look at where we would draw that line a little bit, if it got that far. What happens after tonight would be, if that's the recommendation. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Okay, so it just follows those lot lines, yeah. So, what would happen after tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leo, and I think Roger went through it briefly, is that the recommendation would go back to commission, and then,
Yeah, they would have to introduce an ordinance. As a formality, they may want to send it back to us once again. but I think most of our discussion's done tonight.
Right. I get why we would want to make that change, but if it's not affecting really anything.
It's
other
not
than-
changing.
Right. That's the question the city commission's going to have to go through. Do we want to spend those dollars to kind of just correct the name of this area?
I have a question. When you say dollars, do you have any idea?
We'd have to look at the owner's list. It's how many blocks was it, Roger? 4 blocks long? More than 8 blocks long. So 200-foot radius around that whole area. Obviously, everything on the beach side's nobody, it's us.
Well, fortunately, these lots are still pretty big, so it wouldn't be that many.
We have to look at it.
You have to notice everyone within the new zone you're creating, and then within
Basically
200
half-
feet
half of
of the
each.
boundary of the zone.
But that's the cost of that, just from the owner.
That's how many people you have to notice.
Way above.
No,
Okay.
I mean, it's not millions and millions of dollars, it's thousands of dollars to spend, but is that something that we want to spend money on? Nice. Not a bad idea.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I also thought of calling this an overlay zone, but the procedure, I think, to go forward would be the same, whether it's an overlay zone or a distinct zone. But I think we should proceed with the designation.
Okay.
I mean, we just did it for the commercial zone on Ventnor Avenue. We're in the process of doing that now.
Right.
The notices are going out, and we're going to expand that zone to incorporate those 2 commercial properties that are in a residential district. So it is something that you do. You go through and you look at things, has things change, and this zone, within a zone, as Roger called it, it would be a cleaner way to designate it if we give it that boardwalk designation. But, let's hear from the public, see what their thoughts are. I want to be very clear, the recommendation coming out either way is that no changes occur to the lot widths or lot areas. So I know there was some confusion in some of Roger's, the first page of his report. That was going through some of the existing zoning requirements. So just to be very clear, there's no proposed changes to the lot widths or lot areas in the R1 district.
Okay. Board members, any discussion or questions before I open up to the public?
I know I should know this, but in 2003, what actually happened to trigger all this?
The Earth collided with the moon.
What did you say?
The Earth collided with the moon. At this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. Is anyone wishing to make comment on this application? Yes, sir. Gentleman in the red.
Just state your name and address, and I'll swear you in.
Yes, hi, Craig Ameth, 109 South Dorset
You
Avenue.
can take that out of the mic and bring it up to yourself so you don't get it.
Craig Ameth, 109 South Dorset Avenue.
Mr. Aneth,
Anmeth,
do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I applaud you for arriving at this decision. I just have a couple of quick comments regarding it. If you change and create a new zone, does that give someone who has come in front of this board another bite at the apple to ask for a variance? And that's a legal question that I don't know the answer to. But I suspect that if you change the zone, that someone who has been here before will now be allowed to come again and ask for a variance that was previously denied. My second question is, have you given any serious consideration to creating a historic district in the St. Leonard's Tract area, other than to listen to me ask for it last time I was here? And I'll take the answers off comment.
As far as whether an application that was previously denied comes back, I'm not sure if you're referring to a specific property or just anywhere within the zone, but those are handled on a case-by-case basis. There's something called res judicata. If you've applied for something and been denied, you don't get a second bite at the apple. One of the arguments around that is something called changed circumstances. So I suppose in theory, someone could come forward with an application and say, this is a changed circumstance, and I assume the counter argument to that is going to be, no, it's not really, because nothing's really changed. All we have done is designate a different area. Where that, for me to speculate on how that would fall, I can't.
I can.
Okay.
Okay.
And
How? I don't know.
If you give someone a second chance at a bite at it, they'll be here to ask for it again.
Were they denied or was?
Yeah.
I don't think they ever, I could be wrong, but I don't think an application was ever, I don't know what happened in the,
I'm talking about in 2003 or
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what
I'm
happened
not
there.
talking about what happened last year. I mean, this has been adjudicated back in 2003. This is why we're here.
no, we're not.
Well, partly, yeah.
In any event, this is where we are, and we're going forward from here.
Okay. How about the second?
Well, the second is that we haven't not discussed the historic district, because I don't believe it's within our purview to do.
Well, I mean, the
Well,
planning
it
board,
is.
if the city
It
wanted to
is.
pursue that, it would be something that we would ask you guys to look at. Now, I've had some preliminary conversations, and I'm not a fan of historic districts. I don't think it's appropriate for here. It costs residents more money should they want to replace their windows in their home. They now have to go through an architectural review board. The process to get designated a historic district is extremely lengthy, extremely costly. If there's an entity that wants to do that in the city, they can certainly file that paperwork with the state. At this point, I don't believe that the city commission would be supportive of that. That's at least my opinion on it. I have not heard specifically from the mayor and Commissioner Kriebel on it, but I don't see them putting those restrictions on somebody. I mean, and I've used this example before, having developed projects in Haddonfield, beautiful community, they do a great job with it. It takes forever to go through that process. I've seen them have residents tear windows out of their home that they put in that they didn't feel met the criteria, on an addition to the rear of their home. I would not want to put a resident through that. So that's my opinion on it. There's
I concur.
a bunch of other people up here that might have an opinion, so.
Yes, sir, please come forward.
Name and address, I'll swear you in.
Michael Bluestein, 111 South Derby Avenue.
You swear affirm the testimony about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I just wanted to confirm that what I heard was that the current R1 will be 85 on the corner and 80 in the middle?
80.
It's 80 and 80?
Lot width is 80 feet.
80 feet on corner lots, 80 feet on interior lots, is that correct?
That's correct.
80 and 80.
That's correct.
Okay, currently I thought it was 85 and 80, 85 on the corner, 80 on interior.
No, minimum lot width is 80. You have 125 feet to work with, or 250, so that's that 85 comes in there. But minimum lot width is 80 feet like it was before.
Okay, so if there is, where did the 85 come into play then?
That was leftover land that created that corner lot.
Okay, so it couldn't go higher than the 80 is what you're
Really,
saying?
you can have a 100-foot
Minimum
lot
lot
if you
width
want.
is
Yeah, right, exactly, okay. As far as the people that I've been representing, and if Ann wants me to, on behalf of St. Leonard's Track Association, we really, really appreciate your objectivity and very much your conclusion. And hearing about the park tonight, and Paula did just an incredible job with the park. Open space, adding to the Ventnor feel and the beauty of Ventnor. I think this decision equally in our little area does the same thing. And we very much appreciate your votes. Thanks.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks, brother.
Mr. Klinger, sir.
Mr. Klinger, we swear you in before, but what's your address again, and just I'll swear you in.
Yeah, I swear to it. And it's still Norm Klinger at 1 South Oxford.
And you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, of course. This is called Plymouth Plan. As chairman of the Board of Commissioners of Plymouth Township, Pennsylvania in 1972, I accepted it and we adopted it. I mention this so you'll know that I have some experience with planning and zoning and governing, and I also, before I went straight, practiced law. Now, the reason I hark back to this is because some of the things I've heard and some of the things I have read make me feel that the approach to this entire question is really from the wrong end of the telescope. Planning boards and master plans don't work to fix things here and there. They create an overall scheme for the progression of a community through history to suit the needs of the citizenry. Now, I may be lecturing to you about something you know about, but I want to get back to the roots of what planning and zoning is. And it tells you that in a number of master plans that Ventnor has paid for with our dollars, and paid a lot of money, and many thousands of dollars. This is important because if you ever went out on a long voyage on a boat, you would have your charts. Well, our charts here are the master plans, and the most recent one was 2016. Today I had the pleasure of reading through all of the preserved master plans that Ventnor has, 4 of them. Fortunately, I know where to look, and I speed read. And that's why I say you need to look at the chart. You need to look at why you have a master plan. And it tells you right in the master plan from 2016, and this is the 4th one since 1988, it says that Ventnor vision for itself is the master plan because it is a guiding land development policy and planning for decisions. It's the basis for governing land. This is in 2016, and it was in December. It's not even 2 years yet. And if you looked at this, and if you had a chance to look at the relevant sections, you'll see why you shouldn't do some fixing here and there because there are inconsistent lots. Let me illustrate briefly. I live on South Oxford Avenue. There's some great, big, beautiful lots. There are also inconsistent lots. There's one that's so small that it wouldn't fit into any zone, but it was servants' quarters at one time, and it remained, and it's a prior non-conforming use. I have no objection to it. It's great, it's lovely, it's historic. There are other houses that are inconsistent, not only on Oxford Avenue, but throughout Ventnor. Are you going to go around fixing things geometrically and say, well, because these things are out of kilter, and this one has changes, and this one got a variance, let's downgrade everything down to that level? That's the extreme position. You didn't say that, but that's where you end up on a slippery slope when you start fixing here and there instead of following a comprehensive plan that was paid for less than 2 years ago and is your guide. And this plan, by the way, says it looked back at the 1988, 1996, and the 2006 report, which was built upon approximately 60 years of land use regulation in the city of Ventnor. We have history. Planning and zoning has to be done like constitutional amendments, slowly and carefully. I'm talking about the United States Constitution. That was designed to keep things progressing at a historic, slow, and careful pace. So that's where I draw the parallel to your master plans. That's what you have. That's your guiding Bible to follow. Of course, you can make fixes here and there, as in 2003. Now, 2003 actually expanded the requirements for R1. There is nothing in the history of Ventnor since 2003, other than the master plan, would justify going backwards by saying, no, let's reduce this, and let's reduce the other, because there's some non-conforming things happening around there, because somebody allowed a variance and a flag lot, things of that sort. I have no dog in this fight. I don't live on that street. I don't represent anybody. I don't practice law anymore. I'm retired. Thank goodness. But I am concerned with the planning process for Ventnor. I care about it, and I don't want to see any fixing here and there, which would be like trying to fix an old house by making little patches. You don't do that. I'm trying to draw parallels where you need a master plan, you need a design. We have one, the 2016 master plan. Take a look at them. In addition to the 60 years of zoning that Ventnor has done, we have a bigger master plan called the St. Leonard's Association, which is over 100 years old. And if you look at it, that's really the origin of how Ventnor was planned when you look at all the details and the restrictive covenants that still go from deed to deed.
Mr. Klinger.
That's why
Mr.
people
Klinger.
bought into it.
Mr. Klinger.
Excuse me?
We're not going to go into the covenants.
I can't hear you.
We're not going into the covenants of the St. Leonard's Tract. We are here to discuss
No,
this
I'm giving you
issue
history.
here. I know the history, sir.
That's part of planning.
We have been here in the planning. I have been here for 40 years.
Excuse me, sir, you're interrupting me, and it's cited in your master
I
plan.
helped
The
write
St.
the
Leonard's
master
Tract
plan.
is cited in your master plan.
I understand that, sir.
So I'm not here representing St. Leonard's.
Good.
So how can you cut me off
I'm
when
not
I'm
cutting
giving
you
you
off.
relevant history from your master plan?
I'd like you to focus on the what.
I
is in
am.
it.
You
Please.
are not planning according to the master plan. You are not following what the master plan says, and it includes reference to St. Leonard's. I'm not dragging it in. It's right in there. And why do they mention
The
it?
St.
Because
the
it's a
beach block-
crowning zoning in Ventnor.
Mr. Klinger, the beach block is not in St. Leonard's Tract.
It doesn't matter. It
Doesn't-
has the character, I know where it's located.
Okay, fine.
It has the character and the history of the development. And I'm not basing it on the St. Leonard's Tract, but that's part of the history
The
that
board-
your master plan mentions.
We know the master plan. This board wrote it.
Excuse me?
This board helped write that master plan.
Of course, and your name is on it.
That's correct.
And that's why I'm objecting very strenuously to little fixes here and there, and I'm emphasizing the word master.
There is no
Now,
little.
the history of this progression of this
So
effort,
noted.
It's,
We get your point.
but
We understand.
You get your point. Mr. Klinger?
I'm not finished.
Well, I'm going to have to cut you off. because
Why? Is there a time limit?
There's going to be, there is a time limit.
I didn't know that.
Well, I'm giving you one now.
Well,
You got
that's
two-
not
You got
right.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
Rapid.
I know the history of this particular effort. And it started with one outfit or one investor or one developer or one landowner, whichever you want to call them. And it started a meandering course till they wound up back here. People called it spot zoning, and the commissioners pulled back and sent it over here. Today I hear a commissioner talking about, well, there was old spot zoning. No, it wasn't. The variance in that case is the law of the case. Ask your solicitor. It governs. You cannot get relief in a roundabout way. That's not lawful. Think of that. It's not lawful. Ask your solicitor. They got what they wanted in the variance. They agreed to it in 2003 or so. They're bound by it. They should not get relief through some roundabout way. I appreciate your patience. I had at least 45 minutes more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
John Irons, 106 South Derby Avenue, Ventnor, New Jersey.
You swear affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I want to thank all the board members for listening to the public, to listening to our concerns. I want to especially thank Jay, Lance, Roger especially, for coming up with this. This is a great idea. It's meant we talk about history. This is exactly what we need to preserve the history of St. Leonard's Tract Great idea to come up with this new zone area to preserve the boardwalk and the history of Ventnor. Thank you all for your time, your concerns, and all the thought processes that you put into this. Thank you.
Take care, Don. Todd, be sworn in, please.
Mr. Miller, you swear affirm testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Todd Miller, 15 South Dorset Avenue. I'm here as a resident, as a local professional, and I believe as the only authorized representative of St. Leonard's Tract. And I come here just to thank you. I understand that this board has lots of conflicting issues that they have to deal with, and lots of conflicting concerns, but these issues arise. You heard from the community, and we appreciate that, that you listen to us. And just wanted to say thank you. On the issue of whether or not you write an ordinance or not, as a taxpayer, I'd say if it's not broken and it's not illegal, there's plenty of other things to spend the money on, but I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if that is absolutely a necessary fix, but I'll leave that up to the professional to decide. So anyways, thank you very much. Oh, and as St. Leonard's Tract, we looked into getting a historic designation. We figured it's going to be about $100,000 to make the application, and for that and a number of other reasons which you described, we decided to not move forward with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Anyone else wishes to comment? Mr. Ponzio, sir.
Mr. Ponzio, just state your name and address, Mr. Ponzio.
Art Ponzio.
And where's your business address?
Say again? 808 North Harvard Avenue.
Okay. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I sure do.
Thanks.
I'm here just as a resident tonight, not representing anyone. As the last time we spoke, I was very interested in all the things that the neighbors had to say. It's always interesting to hear what lay people, when they come before these boards, you have all kind of different opinions, and it's really nice to be able to take it all in. In this particular case, I think you have somewhat of a difficult job ahead of you, as well as the commissioners do. This is an interesting area, this R1. It's 8 blocks long, as Roger mentioned, correct? Really, I look at it as 5 blocks long. You take the city block out of the zoning mix. There's 2 blocks which are condos on the ocean front. I don't think we're talking about anything there. You take these high rises or mid rises or whatever. And the rest of it, you've got a mix of small properties, middle-sized properties, large properties, vacant land, homes built on, old homes, a couple new homes, modern homes. It's really a blend of everything. So it's hard for myself and perhaps all of you to grasp all of that in one context and say, geez, what's the right thing to do? I just want to give you a couple facts. I'm not here to give you my opinions about this, and hopefully these facts will help you in your deliberations. Okay, Mr. Wiesen asked the question about what happened in '03. Well, the zoning for many years in this particular 8-block area allowed 50-foot lots on the boardwalk, on the side street, on Atlantic Avenue, everywhere. 50 at 125, actually 50, I'm sorry, by 105. That was the prescribed depth. And that was the zoning for years and years and years up until you hit 2003. So in all those years where the lots were allowed to be 50 feet, what was done? Was there a mad rush to develop 50-foot lots? No, there wasn't. There's reasons for that. What land was available, what wasn't available, prices, everything comes into play. But it's a long time that no one rushed here and tried to develop 50-foot lots. So there were 3 50-foot lots built. There was a subdivision done, believe it or not, back in 1988. Someone came before the board. Our office at that time even actually represented them. They came before this board. There was no public there. It was a by right, 3-lot minor subdivision. Some of the board members here were on the board at that time. It was voted in with no fanfare. There were 3 magnificent homes built on those properties, and they're still existing today. They're the only 3 lots that are 50 feet wide. And in the ensuing years, some of the original 125-foot lots were divided up into 60 and a 65, or whatever the case may be. There's one block which remains vacant. It's a full 250-foot block. By the way, all the blocks are 250 feet, with the exception of one. It's 169.5 feet. All the rest are 250 feet block to block in this, called this 8-block area. So when I think of that, I don't get off track here, when I think of that 80-foot dimension we spoke about, you might think it makes sense, whatever. Doesn't go into 250 evenly, so I'm not sure exactly how that's congruent to the actual block size. I mean, look at the facts here. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. So the 3 lots were built on at 50 feet. Others were created at 65 feet and 60 feet, and a couple other 84-foot wide lots. So if the ordinance gets changed or doesn't go back to what it was with the 50-foot, and it goes to this new zone of, what do you call it, B, R1B, and creates an 80-foot lot, what does that mean? Okay, so from 2003 till today, we got 15 years. The ordinance was changed to 10,000 square foot lots, that's what it is today on the boardwalk, and 80-foot frontages. So how many houses were built on a 10,000 square foot lot in the R1 in 15 years? The answer is none. So obviously that ordinance didn't work. Not one house was built on a 10,000 square foot lot in 15 years. To me, that's not good planning, but that's just my opinion here. I'm not here to give you that. So let's look at the other lots that are here. And it's very simple. The Verney lot, if we want to talk about the one house, the modern home, the Verney lot, it's actually a consolidation of lots. And to me, it looks like it's almost 3 houses, but technically it's only one. But be that as it may, it's the only house. Okay. So if we go from Surrey to Suffolk, that's where the 350-footers are. There's one 100-foot lot on that block. It's Dr. Renzi's house. So if we go to this, we continue with this 80-foot, that lot will never be subdivided. It's 100 feet. So there's a gentleman that will own a lot in perpetuity. He's got 100 feet on the ocean front. He can't subdivide that lot. The next block's the city lot. I'm working to the south, to the west. Somerset to Oxford, that's the small block. The block is only 169 feet wide. It's divided in half. It's going to stay that way regardless of what this board does. If you made 50-foot lots, they could not subdivide that because there's not enough room in the block. The next block from Oxford is Dudley. That's a condominium. That's not being talked about. The next block, Dudley to Dorset. It's developed as 3 lots. That's the prior Verney house. It's a consolidation of 3 or 4 lots. And it has 2 lots. One's at 65, one's at 60. So if you take that block, let's just say in the future somebody says, I'm tired of looking at that house. I want to build a beautiful old home two beautiful homes on this Verney lot, like reminiscent of St. Leonard's Tract. You can't subdivide that lot. That lot's 125 feet wide. So imagine you would own 125 feet of our boardwalk, and you can't subdivide that lot. Now, if you go down to the other stretches of Ventnor, from the beginning of Ventnor to the end of Ventnor, every single property is zoned for either a 3,000 square foot lot or a 3,125 square foot lot. We're talking 10,000 feet in this zone. Triple the size of the other lots in Ventnor that are permitted by right and are subdivided all the time. This board hears that many times. 50 by 60, 50 by 62.5, perfectly legal in every zone except this R1. So here we are thinking about creating these, and continuing that is, the 10,000 square foot requirement for these lots in this limited area of our city. So the man with 125 feet there, he would not be able to subdivide that lot. Let's go down the boardwalk a little bit more. Dorset to Dudley, they're vacant properties. There's 3 lots. One's 85, one's 80, one's 85. Big lots. 85 by 125, 80 by 125, whatever. So obviously those lots could not be subdivided. So we would have those lots forever and ever and ever. There's only 2 more blocks to go, one of which is the condominium from Cornwall to Cambridge. But let's look at Derby to Cornwall. It's an interesting lot. There's a very old home on the corner of Boardwalk and Cornwall Avenue. That lot is on, Mr. Taka, you brought up a very good point. I want to touch on that. I don't want to forget that. Very, very important what you said. That lot is 125 feet. So you could own that lot and say that, geez, I own that lot. I want to divide that up in a 60 and a 65. Like all the other St. Leonard's Tract lots, if you compare it to that, even though we're not in the St. Leonard's Tract, compare it to it, you cannot subdivide that lot. you'd be stuck coming to this board and asking for a variance, get this, from 80 feet to say 60 or 65, when you're standing here saying, I have 125 feet. I only need 80. I have 45 feet more than I need, and I can't divide that lot. So to me, again, I think that that's something you need to think about, because essentially you zone those lots forever. So that's the end of the whole district. Everything I've just said here, believe it or not, there's not much to deal with here. And when you think about it, by continuing this 80 feet, if that's the direction the board wants to take, there will never be, forever and a day, a legal subdivision of a boardwalk frontage lot in that zone. There's just no land left. 80 feet just locks it off forever and ever and ever. We'll never have it. Okay, so now does that matter? Well, I think it matters. Why does it matter? Somebody touched on, the value, I want to say before I get off track, one quick thing with what you said, Mr. Taco. In most cases, I agree with Lance, and we go back many, many, many years, that zoning lines follow lot lines. This is different. Why is it different? All the other lots on every block that I just discussed, of all of the lots, from Atlantic to the boardwalk, from Surrey to Cambridge, 75% of them have 50-foot frontages, and they're 50 by 125. 75% of those lots. If you take the boardwalk out of that, it goes up to over 90% of the lots. So take the Vernicott house, the Bernie house. That lot, because it's been consolidated, is 125 by 175. So if in the future that house got torn down, that person would be bound by this 80-foot zone. My opinion is that they should be able to divide a 50-foot lot on the northerly side of that, leave 125 on the ocean, and divide off a 50 by 125-foot lot like every other lot on the block. Every single lot on the block, other than the boardwalk frontage is that size. Why wouldn't they be able to do that? Go back to Cornwall Avenue. More important there. The Cornwall Avenue block, the old Steve Wynn house, is 225 feet deep. By requiring this 80-foot and following the lot line, that's going to follow that all the way up to the 225, when directly behind that lot is 250 by 125-foot lots. The zone, if you're going in that direction with the 80 feet, in my opinion, lob it off at the 125 back from the boardwalk. Also, if you look at the condo lots, I don't know what you do with those. I don't know that it matters one way or another, but those depths are different from the 125. I can't foresee them ever in a day being torn down, so I don't know that that matters. But please take into consideration what your board member said. I agree with it. I think it's important, especially in those two blocks. It's important. One last thing. Somebody mentioned values, and values aren't everything. Money's not everything, but it matters. I did some math. I want you to. I know you're fully informed, but I want you to understand this one thing that I'm going to tell you here about values. And that's important for all of us in this room. I looked at the values of each one of these 5 blocks. And the values I looked at are, what's on our books? What's our assessed value? Of the land only, not the building. Buildings are a capital. So if you take the block Derby to Cornwall, where I mentioned the old Steve Wynn house, you take the entire assessed value of the land, divided by the 250 feet, it's going to about the $17,124 as a running foot on the boardwalk. So those folks are being assessed on average for that block of $17,000 a running foot. And in that block you have the Wynn house on 125 feet, and you have 2 other lots, 160 and 165. You go to the next block, the Derby to Dorset block, you have the 85, 85, and 80, 3 lots. You're assessed at $18,000 a running foot. That's essentially the same. Keep going to the east a little bit. Where the Bernie house is, the next block, and the 60 and 65s, it's $20,000 a running foot. It goes up just a little bit. The other block with the 2 84-foot lots is $18,000 a foot, just to let you know. Here's the oddity. This is something to think about. Let's go to the one block where there's 3 50-foot lots in it. If you take those 3 50-foot lots and you take the assessed value on our books, it's $25,670 a foot. It is a stark difference. to have the smaller lots. If you're thinking assessment, I'm saying money's not everything. It's something to think about. We're zoning, if we go with this, that's gone forever. You multiply that by all these lots, who knows what's gonna happen in the future? A house gets torn down, lots get consolidated, people wanna build 3 or 4 50-foot lots, that's gone forever. That's a lot of money. That's your consideration. Okay, I have one other thing, and I'm done. And I thank you for giving me this time. I live on Harvard Avenue, on the Bayfront. And there are two homes on Harvard Avenue that strike me. They're built on the southerly end of Harvard, a little bit above Calvert. They're monster homes on big lots. You might all know those two lots I'm thinking about, I'm talking about. They wall off the Bayfront. When you look at the cadence along Harvard Avenue, I'm comparing that to this ocean front. Of the 60-foot or 75-foot, in some cases way at the end, a couple of lots were 90 feet. The smaller lot gives you more air, light, open space, more opportunity for view corridors from the people across the street. That's everybody's water. I live on the bay, I don't own the water. Everybody has a right to look at that, which is why your zoning controls that. So if you have an 8-foot setback, think about it. I have a 60-foot lot and an 8-foot setback, and the neighbor's got an 8-foot setback, there's 16 feet between the houses, so every 60 feet, you have a 60-foot open space to the bay. Take a 100-foot lot and do the same thing, apply the 8-foot setbacks. Think of what you do to the Bayfront. Think of what you do to the people across the street. Every person walking by that sidewalk, looking down at that Bayfront, you wall off the Bayfront. Those two homes are a stark example of that. So all these folks, I understand density, believe me, I do. And I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I applaud that. Everybody has their own opinion, which I'm in favor of all those opinions. But just think about it. If we're dealing with, if the primary focus here is one particular block on that ocean front, which it seems like that's been the focus for all these conversations, and in my opinion, it shouldn't be that. It looks wonderful. It's a vacant lot. I just absolutely fine and dandy. But think of 3 homes maxed out on those lots, with those small, relatively small setbacks inside. Think about that and the massing of a big home. I've been doing this my whole life, my whole professional life. I've been doing this, and I know what the mass of a big home is, and what it does to a neighborhood, what it does to a property, what it does to view corridors, what it does to air, light, open space, what it does to wind and air that comes through the alleyways and whatnot. I've seen it my whole life. I've taken both sides of it, as you both know. But I want to say that just think about it. If you had a smaller lot and you applied those setbacks and you had additional view corridors, in my opinion, at the end of the day, in my opinion, many neighbors, maybe not all, many would say, why didn't we want that? It's something you may want. It's something to reduce mass. Think about the monster homes. You know, now there's lots of homes built on this island on the ocean front. Let's give you one final thing. I've said that a couple times. One final thing. You look at Longport, some magnificent, beautiful homes. You know the frontage of a lot in Longport, the ocean front's 45 feet. You know the frontage on an average front on the lot in Margate is 50 feet. This is, maybe it's an anomaly, there's reasons for it, but just consider all the things I've said. This will be the only area on our ocean front literally from essentially, I'm on Atlantic City out in the next, from the tip of Ventnor all the way down to the tip of Longport. There's lots of this size. So maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not. That's what you have to consider. I think the money part is important. The visual aspect of finished homes on these large lots is important in the scheme of things. What Mr. Taco said, I think it's important to consider. Also, the fact that a change to go to an 80-foot lot like this, that's it. There's no more subdivisions. Not one more lot. We are on the ocean front, and legally, you subdivide it. That would be it forever. Is that good plan? Is that where the city wants to go? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. It's good information.
Michael Bluestein, 111 South Derby Avenue.
You're already sworn, go ahead.
Okay. Can I ask Art a question?
Yeah, please.
Have you ever been hired by Gelman Properties?
In the past,
Excuse me?
In the past, I was, yes.
Okay. So your presentation, each time you've been here, has really been almost on behalf of Gelman Properties, or suggesting strongly that a 50-foot frontage is very appropriate for the Dorset Derby lots. Actually, the 2 lots that she owns should become 3 lots.
I didn't give my opinion on that.
But basically, it leads to that conclusion.
And I have not represented her before this board since 2003.
Okay, but pretty much it comes to that conclusion. Thank you, I just wanted to ask that. Okay. I'm coming to me, okay?
Just one thing. This isn't about the Gelman case at all. This is about the land.
Well, for me, it is. I'm going to tell you why. Because in the past, whenever I've spoken here, it's been on behalf of the 32 residents that I sort of have been representing, and also my love and caring about St. Leonard's Tract. Our attorney has said to me that I should have discussed what my personal situation is regarding 111 South Derby Avenue. So, promises were made, both direct and indirect, when I bought my lot from Gelman Properties to me. Also, the same was said when the Bronsons bought their lot, and that's the Dorset lot, from Gelman. The agreement was that there would be 3 large 85 by 80 lots with homes to be built at some time. And then we would know exactly what the setbacks would be so that we could create great beach views. Gelman owned a 6th adjoining lot that you may not have been aware of, and that's the 3rd house from Derby Avenue, the 3rd house. I bought that from the Gelman Properties in about 2002. That's 109 Derby Avenue. So in addition to the 5 lots on Dorset and Derby original tract, I purchased that lot, 3rd from the beach, from Fan in about 2002. I held it for 2 years, waiting for 111 South Derby lot to be sold, the lot in front of me. And Fran and I talked a lot about that. So while I was waiting, Derby lot to be sold and built so I could build my house, knowing the placement, in order to have beach views. And that's why I didn't build right away on 109 Derby. After 2 years with no sales on her 2 lots, Fran knew that I was waiting for the 111 South Derby, 2nd from the beach, to be sold and somebody to build so that I could figure out where to put my 109 Derby house in order to have some beach views. So Fran said to me, why don't you buy the 111 South Derby, 2nd from the beach, so you could build right away and have guaranteed great views based on the setbacks of her 2 beachfront lots. I agreed and bought the 111 South Derby lot, 2nd from the beach, from Gelman Properties in about 2004. I had my architect design my house based on guaranteed views that Fran referred to when selling me the 2nd lot. I also told her that I would develop and build the house on 109 South Derby, 3rd from that I had originally bought, because now I could guarantee them to have beach views. I said building 2 houses on her property would maybe help sell her 2 lots. When I started construction on 111 South Derby, my builder found an undisclosed oil tank, that's separate, cost me $6,400. Also, the prestigious St. Leonard's Tract was advertised in Philadelphia Magazine and that it was CAFR approved, her beachfront lot. It was not CAFR approved. So out of the lots that are for sale, so that, let me just stop. So my personal thing is I'm living in either 3 50-foot lots in front of me, or I'll have 3 beautiful, large, excessive homes in front of me. I would much rather have, and I would ask the Bronsons what they would rather have, they own the Dorset lot, what they would rather have. So to start knocking, to come back to 50 feet beach frontage is really detrimental financially as well as visually. And I understand what Art's saying with, well, maybe the house might be a little closer, it'll be a bigger house, no, we're going to have a street running through in front of our lots. It's a disaster to think that there would be three 50-foot lots in front of our house, and then a fourth house. What that would do visually to Dorset and Derby Avenue, all the homes on Derby Avenue and Dorset Avenue would absolutely drop in value.
Sir, are you opposed to 50-foot lots?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, that's all.
I think he is opposed to 50, he's not opposed to 80.
I'm the one most affected by this, and I definitely appreciate your votes for the 80-foot lots. And by the way, I do want to, I apologize, but if 3 people had commented that there might be conflicts of interest in voting, and I take that very, very seriously, because if people have, Farley Ferry is the real estate firm that Fran Gelman is licensed with. She had all these lots, the two lots that she owns, not 3 lots. You know, there's been a misconception that Fran owned 3 lots. She does not own 3 lots. She owns 2 lots. Bronson's own 1. I built a house. Fran built a house. So there are only 2 lots available. And the sales price has been $3.2 million and $2.6 million. 40% over market value. 40% over market value. So the reason that the 2 lots have not sold has nothing to do with the size of the lots. It's all about the pricing of the lots. So 3 people, so Farley Ferry, there's conflicts. Some people's wives on the planning board work for Farley Ferry. That, to me, has a direct financial impact. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know if it's correct.
Well, we're going to stop right here. You're going, the people's wives and this and that and so on. Either there's a conflict or there's not.
Well, I don't know what 3 people, you had sort of a discussion.
No, we didn't have a
and 3
discussion.
people raised their hands.
It was open, and that was that. Sir, I talked to you before about this.
Oh, I've never mentioned this before.
You're raising stuff that doesn't belong to be raised here, and there's no conflicts here, and our attorney certified that already. So don't go there. And, you know, don't make accusations to people against this board.
I didn't make an accusation.
Well, don't even suggest
I asked a question to you.
There is none.
Should 3 people raise their hands?
3 people didn't raise their hands, and there's no suggestion of it, and our attorney cleared it. The issue is done.
Okay.
I think 2 people mentioned something, and I think they wanted it on the record that they did not feel that there was a conflict of interest, and I supported that.
I was just asking the question.
No,
I wasn't
I
confronting.
appreciate it.
I was asking. I didn't know who they were and what they were saying, so I was sort of asking the question.
We take that seriously, and we don't even allow it to happen.
Okay.
So
I appreciate that, Jack.
That's the first
I
step we
appreciate
start.
that. Thank you.
They wouldn't be sitting here if they had a conflict.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Linda Bronson, 110 South Washington at 5900 Boardwalk. And I do want to just reiterate...
Just Ms. Bronson, do you swear to affirm testimony about the guilty truth?
I do.
Thanks.
The reason we picked the property that we have was because of its large size and the large size of the one next to it. It was promoted that way. It was a unique advantage. To pull that back now really is completely inappropriate. I honestly feel the ordinance, everything that it exists today, should really just remain as it is. It's not broken. It doesn't need to be fixed. There really isn't anything, in my opinion, that needs to be fixed at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Sill, sir.
My name is Bill Sill. I live at 103 South Suffolk.
Mr. Sill, do you swear to affirm testimony about the guilty truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
There were just 2 quick points I'd like to make coming out of Art's presentation. First, he said, if you make this change, or if you build this the new B subsection, that, quote, this is forever. And I just wanted to point out that it isn't forever because, like any other parcel of land, you could go and ask for a variance. The second point I'd like to make
Which runs
is
forever.
that he asked about, he mentioned the possibility of walling off the sea view. Well, follow my logic if you would, please. Earlier, he said that 100-foot lots wouldn't sell. Yet he said if these 100-foot lots sold, you wouldn't be able to see the view. So it's one of two things. Either the lots would all sell, in which case the thrust of his argument, which was these lots wouldn't sell.
Well, guys, we're dealing with minutia here. So either let's put it this way, you're either for it or against it. Let's not get in the weeds here. Let's get out of the weeds and let's get on to the topic.
Okay.
So back to topic, out of the weeds.
Yes. All right, then getting back to the topic and out of the weeds.
Right.
I am in favor of the action that the planning board is proposing today, and I think that it was done after long deliberations and with a lot of public input, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Bill. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board this evening? If not, the public portion is now closed. Members of the board, we are at this point, if you wish to have any more questions of our engineer, our council, or for discussions, please do it now.
I need to completely understand the zoning as it exists on the boardwalk right now, because the rest of the zoning in that area is 50-foot lots, so
No, it's not. It's not 50-foot lots.
it's not.
Okay, Roger, explain it. Our engineer will explain it to you.
In the blocks, the beach blocks themselves, the predominant lot width is 50 feet.
Right.
But for boardwalk frontage lots only, there's really no prevailing lot size, but over half of them are larger than 80 feet.
I think what he's asking is what's the zoning? What's the ordinance say now? Correct, Peter?
Right.
Yeah.
What, today?
Yes.
For the boardwalk?
For the entire R1 zone. Go through the zoning requirements, just real briefly.
The iron, okay. Yeah.
Just the lot widths in the R1.
What is the zone called first?
Well, it varies.
Right, I think that's what Peter's asking. You've got 50, you're permitted to be 50 feet, kind of middle of the block. Atlantic Avenue, I think you have to be 60 to 65, is that correct? Is that correct?
There's lots that are facing like the side streets, like Nash, 50 feet wide.
All right. First, let's get this straight. We're not dealing with any lot that does not front on the boardwalk. That's all we're going to deal with, is lots that front on the boardwalk. That's it.
I just had a comment that I wanted to,
Could you
I'm
hold
sorry,
on
I thought you
one
were
second?
done.
Could you hold on 1 second, please? So first of all, the only lots we deal with are lots fronting the boardwalk.
Well, just to be clear, in fairness, we're talking about the whole zone right now.
Okay.
Because it is a whole zone.
Okay, if you want to talk about the whole zone,
I
fine.
mean, I don't want to open it up to,
No,
let's go
no.
individual lots, but I'm saying his question is, what's the zoning in the R1 now?
Okay.
So it permits 50-foot lots, it permits 65-foot lots, and on the boardwalk, it requires a minimum of 80 feet lot width and 125 feet deep. So
Okay.
depending on where you are,
So all these other lots on the boardwalk are all not
there's not that many there.
65s.
There's only a couple, there's 4 of them.
You would want to carve out an R1B zone? Raise your hand. What do you got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They got it. Those who want to, I not even sense going the other way. So we're going to do the R1B.
And then we can have further discussion.
Yeah.
If the public wants to have input on that, it'll
Right.
come up for discussion at city commission. And if it's not something that goes forward, it's not a big deal, because it's not changing anything.
It's very simple. It's a
Yeah.
very simple concept. So At this point, Leo, it's all yours.
What we need is a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners, that the Board of Commissioners move forward with introducing an ordinance creating a new zone along the boardwalk in the R1 zone called the R1B zone or something similar with 80 by 125 foot lots and a minimum 10,000 square foot lot size requirement. And that would include a finding that doing this would be consistent with the master plan.
I make that recommendation.
I'll
Yeah, we
second
have a
it.
second? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Langgraf?
Vote in favor. I want to make a brief statement that really appreciate the board's work on this. This was not an easy one, and I'll take the blame for throwing it on your lap because I'm kind of the one who started it, so I apologize for that. But I do appreciate the effort, Jay and Tom, especially with Roger. You guys really put in the extra time, got some data together, and did the yeoman's work on this, so I vote yes.
Mike Wiesen?
I listened to everything everybody had to say. I listened to Mr. Klinger. He made, even though he's a little long-winded, he made very good points. And the reason I didn't want to vote to change it is because of the history of it. I listened to Art Ponzio, made very good points. I mean, beyond logic, the points were so good. But to clarify the situation that we have and the unique property, I'm going to go along with the board and vote in favor.
Jay Cook?
I'm voting in favor for it. I believe it'll help clarify some of the situation, and at the same time, I think there will be some future development on the boardwalk, and we'll see what it is and how it goes. Because even looking down the blocks, the interior parts of the beach blocks, you can see a tremendous amount of development's already occurred. So I think it's going to show through right up to these particular properties now that it's all settled. And I welcome the Sueys, or not Suey, got the names all screwed up. Yeah. But to start, I heard you're going to start building, so great. And in any event, that's my vote. And I'm sticking to it.
Tom McAdam?
I vote yes for clarity purposes.
Roman Zabiach?
I also vote yes. I see the planning practicality of making this division.
Lorraine Salata?
I'll vote in favor of it also. I think we've listened to a lot of pros and cons, and I think by creating its own zone on the boardwalk, I think that's the right move to make. It will clarify things.
Dan Smith III?
Yeah, I also vote in favor for all the comments that have been made. It cleans it up to a point that makes it easier to determine based on, if you look at the 2003, there's a lot of north, south, east, and west, and this now defines it as its own zone.
Peter Taco?
I will vote in favor of it. I know that when they craft the ordinance, it limits 125 feet of the boardwalk.
We would look at that, definitely. Roger would be the one.
I would recommend the same thing.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
They wouldn't follow the lot lines. That we have
we have one more
to go.
Tim Coop?
I also vote in favor of it. I think it's the right conclusion, and as everyone says, it cleans it up and it makes it better.
And just one other thing, I don't know what timing-wise, if we need to get a resolution back to the Board of Commissioners.
You're not going to act on it that fast.
Okay, we can wait till at the next meeting, I'll have a resolution put together.
The motion carries. It is going to be 80 feet, and that is the situation. I'd like to especially thank all of you who've stayed here with divergent opinions, if they may be, but no matter what. And at the back is a questionnaire on rating the seats. So that's it. But thank you. John? Here, hi, Julie. Julie. Oh, we're not done yet, I'm sorry.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.